you was in a team with Zuokas. How did you end up in politics?
I am more concerned about a lot of issues locally than a lot of local people are.
What do you think about Valdas?
When you talk shit, I know it's bullshit. His achievements have been next to nothing as a vice mayor for 8 years.
What's the reality?
We don't have true leaders. And that, I think, is a problem for Lithuania. People want to get away from politics. They don't want to hear nothing about the government. And I gave a shit about it. So what did Remigijus do when he was the mayor? If we are again repairing the roads, even to cheat, you need to be smart.
What can they do?
Your mind is your biggest weakness. What about the money I spend in the government here? Where is that money going?
You come from India.
My son is born in Vilnius. For me, Lithuania is a home. It's not just another stopover destination. I live here. This is my home. If I go into politics, I want to add value. In Lithuania, actually, I can challenge. Nobody will find any dirt on me. I can challenge this.
BetSafe kazino. Lošimo automatai, kortų lošimai, ruletė.
Dalyvavimas azartiniuose lošimuose gali sukelti priklausomybę.
So nice to meet you, Sam. Thank you very much
Likewise.
for coming.
Yeah, it's a pleasure.
Yeah, how was your time in London and what did you do there?
I had a
Because
couple
we met on an airplane. Maybe some people don't know.
So yeah, I mean, I went to London to see my elder son, who lives with my ex-wife, of course. And I went to have some meetings around my work with the London Mayor's office, because I consult and I advise the UK government as well, and the London Mayor's office. So yeah, work plus a personal trip.
Some gifts for you, Sam.
Oh,
So yeah, we have this human performance company brand that's sponsoring us.
nice.
All of this is possible because of them, and also they have a gift for you. So
Great. So thank you. Yeah, it reminds me. I think now I have to look at it every day and do something.
yes,
yeah.
yes.
Papildai sportui numeris 1. Užsuk į mūsų internetinę parduotuvę humanperformance.lt ir išsirink savo tinkamus.
By the way, do politicians exercise or not a lot? Do they talk about health stuff and all
I
of
think
this?
mental health is, of course, more important. I mean,
Mental?
especially for me, I think mental health is a very, very big area of focus because I think in everyday life you have so much pressure, whether you're a politician or you're a professional or whoever you are. I think you have a lot to deal with, especially if it's a family, of course, and then you have the work pressure. You have a lot of things in the family to do, to handle, and so on. And in general, I think sometimes we become so lost in that journey of the day-to-day life that we forget ourselves.
How did you end up in politics?
Um,
Because you had to be a doctor.
I
Your parents were expecting you to be a doctor.
Yeah, I mean, my parents were expecting me to be a doctor, I think. But for me, the social causes, the community has always been very close to my heart. I think especially since the last 12 years, let's say, my journey has moved more from just a corporate world oriented, more into public sector, communities, social
What
causes.
changed?
I had a very, let's say, life-threatening illness, which, let's say, switched a button in my brains to change my perspective of life. And it was a stage where it was like, am I even going to be alive in the next couple of months? So that triggered my mind to think, you know what, you have to look at life a little bit more differently. And I started to focus more around people's lives and, what I can do. It's more like giving a better sort of perspective to your own life and some goals that you want to do something meaningful and a purpose. So
Well, you was working in corporation, you was working in London Underground, so that's quite purposeful. I mean, we used London Underground now, and I mean, it's still going, and there's still many people using it, and it's quite easier right now. You can just tap with the card, bank card, any card.
Yeah.
So you did work in corporation. So what type of works have you done there?
Yeah, so I started my journey. So I have actually worked in quite a few different sectors and industries. So started from fashion, retail, and I worked with some of the biggest names in the world, actually. So Marks and Spencer's. Then I was the youngest logistics manager for IKEA in the world. Titan Oil Sugars, which is the largest sugar refinery in the world. Went on to Formula One to help create a Formula One team for an Indian investor. as well at that time, and that went very well because now I think the names have changed, of course, because they sold the business. But now I think they're in the top 5 as well. So and then this glitch, let's say, happened, and then I moved completely into public sector, so healthcare, which is NHS, which is the largest public sector organization in the world, and Transport for London, which is the London Mirror sort of public sector entity as well. Mm-hmm. I think those two elements, especially healthcare, has been very, very close to me because of, like I said, my own personal reasons. And I think there you get a chance to actually have a wider impact on people's life, because I have seen people come in with 15 stab wounds, and being airlifted, and straight away being run into theaters to be operated upon because it's a question whether you're going to live or not in the next second, and this is within the prisons actually happening as well. So I think,
stabbings?
Yeah. So, it just changed my perspective, and I've been.
So if you get stabbed in a prison, NHS will come?
They have to get you out to the medical help. Yes, you have to. It's a rule. It's a law. You're obliged to do that as a.
It was a little bit difficult for NHS and underground for all these public institutions during Corona and after Corona, right?
Yes,
it's completely different world there. Before and now, maybe.
It's been a hard time, I think, for everyone. To be honest, mindset of people that really changed, and the approach, and I think. To a certain degree, I don't know. I mean, I don't like sometimes the underground. If I don't have to travel, I don't like to go by underground. Not because I don't like public.
Taxis are expensive in London.
Yeah, but it's not because I don't like public transport. It's more because it's depressing for me. It's sad for me when I go on a London Underground.
Why is that?
Because if you see, I mean, the lives today are ruled, I would call, by mobile phones for a start.
Yeah.
And if you've observed this, which I'm sure you might have, if you start, let's say, if you're a normal working person and you get on a train for a 9 o'clock start in your office, the minute you jump on first of all, the minute you stand on the platform, you already see there's a lot of chaos and anxiety for people to jump on the train. That's the first start. When you are on the train, you see people are very sad and very worried and very kind of, lost, there is no happiness. And the same in the evening, or whenever they finish work. And that is for me like the face of London. That's what I call the real face of London, because people say, I've seen this and I've seen that. I said, no, you haven't seen nothing. It's the experience of the real life of London, which people don't come up with and share. And of
Why
course,
do you think is that? Is because so many individualistic people who have so many ambitions and so many goals are in one place, in one underground, all struggling for food or a house or rents. Is it because of that?
No,
many immigrants.
I think it's
hungry.
an individual thing as well, because like they said that your mind is your biggest weakness, and your mind is your biggest strength. So I think it's a lot to do with your mental. Thinking as well.
Why do you think there's so many depressed and anxious people, specifically in London, specifically like you say in underground? I've seen that. I know exactly what you're saying.
Yeah. I mean, it's because, like I said, every day you're working to pay the bills. And that's your life.
You look in Lithuania, people as well are working to pay the bills, but something a little bit different. And people are not very happy here as well, but in a different way, isn't it?
Yes. I mean, I think, like I said, it's an individual approach because. Yes, I lived in London for about 20 years, but I was never like sitting like a sad person on the train or a robotic person on the train. Because for me, I don't see a huge difference between the robots in the factory and robots on the train. Because for me, it's a robotic life. You go, you do this, you do that, you come back, you again eat, sleep, drink, and again back to work, and the same and the same and the same. So when are you living your life is the question. So, I think it's, like I said, it's not about, I think sometimes we say, it's because of this and it's because of that. I always say, you have the ability to change it. You should be responsible to change it, because if things are not changing around you, you are the one who has to initiate that change. So if you are accepting it, it means you're okay with it, and you don't want to change it, because if you do, you'll do something. And that's what I did. after living in London for 20 years, I mean, I wanted to get out. I mean, because for me, it was like, I'm done.
So you were there, and so you decided to leave London. Why is that, and why Lithuania? Because it's such a random move to go to Lithuania if you're not Lithuanian, right?
Yes, it happened as a very strange coincidence, and some people who still ask me, what made
Love
you move
story.
to. Everybody says, yeah, it's for the woman and blah blah blah, and I say, you'll be very shocked. It wasn't for the woman, because in my case, I was going through divorce that time, and it was quite a heavy, I think, divorce for me, anyways, as a person, because my kid was really really young, and I was getting sucked in with the courtroom proceedings all the time. So for me, my only getaway, which I love, is traveling. Since I think a child, I've always enjoyed traveling. So I was on the train, and I like reading real newspapers, not the digital versions, but actual newspaper. So I still remember that I was reading the travel supplement of one of the main newspapers, and I saw the Trakai Castle's image, and I don't know, it just caught my eye, and I said, looks beautiful, looks calm, and looks nice. Let's check. I read a little bit more about where it is in Lithuania, blah blah. Googled, okay, 2.5 hours flight roughly, and checked the price and everything. I said, you know what, we have a long bank holiday coming, let's hop on a flight, let's just switch off, get away for a couple of days, and see how it goes. And that's how I first landed up in
as a tourist?
Vilnius, as a tourist.
So how is how is Lithuania as a tourist?
I didn't get...
Because Trakai is not the first thing you see.
Yeah, but there wasn't a lot I saw anyways in my first trip. I think for me, it was more about, I didn't want to visit a lot of places. I wanted to just get away to a calm, quiet, relaxed space to just switch off. I think for me, it was more about that. So I still remember, I think I stayed in one of the guest houses, you call it, or whatever, on the corner of Vokiečių Gatvė. And I walked, I remember, Vokiečių Gatvė quite a lot, and around, of course, as well. And that was really interesting because I didn't feel I'm in the capital city because of the cobblestones, the roads, and the architecture. And I felt like I'm in some countryside somewhere, So that was really nice. I think.
How many years ago?
Perspective. It's coming close to 7 years now.
Yeah, wow.
Yeah, it's coming close to 7 years.
Back in the day, they used to call Lithuania racist. They used to say that for immigrants, if you're non-white, it's you're gonna have problems.
Yeah.
All of that. I saw your interview. You said you had no problems. I spoke to some people here who are different color. They said they never had problems. So what's the reality?
I think for me, I never experienced anything. Till date. Anyways, and I think it's to do a lot with probably the background I come from, the culture I have, and the values I have. Because for me, it's about, if you go to a new country, you need to respect the country, the people, the culture, the traditions, and the values. And I think a lot of people don't understand that, because a lot of people want to bring their own stuff and make that the dominating part of their lives. And that's where I think a clash becomes very, very possible and imminent to happen at some point, right? And in general, I mean, of course, you will find good and bad elements everywhere in the world. There is no country, I think, you can say, which would have never had any issues with such or any other element anyways. So I wouldn't particularly say that there is anything about racism here. At least, like I said, I mean, I've never experienced anything around that. There are some different attitudes, I would call. So there's a slight difference, I think. Racist, no. Attitudes, yes. And that, I think, is a bigger problem. Because the racism element, you will have only few people. But the attitude element, I think, goes a bit more wider. So
can you explain, what do you mean the attitude part? I think I might understand being a Lithuanian, but yeah,
I think some elements of that is, of course, first of all, the language, right?
Lithuanians expect other people to speak a little bit Lithuanian.
Simple as that, right? Which sometimes I think is fine. But I think if we are trying to portray ourselves as a true European country, which we are, I think we need to take a plunge to start expecting and accepting the most commonly spoken language or business language in the world, which is English, right? I remember back about 10 years ago, Chinese who usually used to speak Chinese as their main language everywhere, whether they're traveling, whether they're in the home, whatever. I remember that they very quickly understood that when you're going for business meetings, for example, with Marks and Spencers or IKEA or whatever,
they don't talk
nobody's
in
going to
English.
speak
They
to you.
don't Chinese.
Yeah, nobody's going to speak to you in Chinese for sure, right? So they very quickly adapted and learned to communicate in English because they understood that the global language, which is common across the world, is English. Ultimately, unfortunately, that is the truth, right? So that is one element. The other element, I think, is there is some level of arrogance, I think, still in people's mindset, especially in the public sector. I've experienced it, I think, on multiple occasions, actually, even quite recently, maybe 2-3 weeks ago as well. And that, I think, is a very big, let's say, issue, which I personally don't think that there is a lot of support or improvement aspects where the government is focusing on such elements, I think. And that is something where I think we do need to work on and improve.
How to
probably.
treat foreigners.
In general, how to treat people, I think.
Customer service.
You know, yeah, in general, because I think foreigners is a very interesting terminology. But when I'm your resident of the city for 7 years, I'm not a foreigner. Yeah. I'm a resident of the city.
Yeah.
And as a resident of the city, I think I should have the same rights as any local does, right? So I would not put any classification of such individuals, I think, or groups. But I think for me, I think the issue is around, the opportunity or the options to at least offer multiple languages, if nothing else, right? When you go to any such public sector entity or whatever it is, and that is exactly what you call customer services. If you go to, for example, I'm sure you might have experienced this, if you go to the UK, right, and for the first time, where let's say when you have an appointment to get your national insurance numbers and whatever, you have to go for an interview actually.
Yeah,
right?
I remember.
And when you're filling that form for the interview, originally, they ask you, do you need a translator? They ask you, it's there in the form, written, right? And if you choose yes, they will provide you one. Not that you have to be worried about, oops, how am I going to, communicate if I don't speak English? Do I take someone? It's there. So they offer you instead, right? Because they understand that's where you start making people feel welcome. That's where you start making people feel, you know what? I want to live here because you make me feel comfortable. You're thinking about my challenges, my issues, my problems. But here it's the opposite. It's like, it's not my problem. Help yourself, sort it out. I don't care. And that is what I call the attitude problem. Going on to then having some experience of the private sector individuals with, again, an attitude where, some people think they are slightly, let's say, successful in Lithuania. So they think that, I'm like, cool. Whereas I come from not just London. I mean, I grew up in Delhi for the first 14 years of my life, 15 years. It's one of the biggest cities in the world. And, I've lived there. I've lived in London. I've lived in other 2 continents as well. Having done that, I think for me, when people start to reflect that attitude that, oh, I'm cool, or, who are you kind of thing, I think it doesn't interest me. Because the way I look at things is, you know what? You don't understand probably what is cool. I have seen much bigger individuals, much bigger people in terms of, let's say, financial wealth or whatever you want to call it, but they still have their heads on the ground kind of thing, and they're still very humble, and they're still very approachable, still very, nice to communicate and easy to communicate with. There's no level of that, oh, I'm this and I'm that. So I think that's also one of the other challenges that I see here. I had an experience with Migration, let's say, office. My son is born in Vilnius, so he holds Lithuanian citizenship, right? And he's only 2.5 years old. And it's a very interesting experience because I think a lot of people will think, wow, okay. So I went on the Migration website. I deliberately completed the form and I was doing it in English because I have been constantly pushing for the fact that we need to speak and understand more English if we really want to grow, really grow. I'm not saying I don't respect Lithuanian. My Lithuanian, okay, is still quite good, but I deliberately sometimes don't want to speak Lithuanian, right? But what happened is I made the appointment and I selected I want to speak or I want to meet a person who will speak English. I chose because it's there. So you can choose English, Polish, and Russian. It's very interesting, right? And I chose English, okay. I went to the appointment and the lady, like, again, unhappy. I don't know, maybe she had a fight at home before she came to work. I don't know. Very sad, like, no smile, no like, hi, good morning, nothing. Like, it's like you just go and bang yourself in the wall and you realize, shit, it's a wall, so you just go back. I sat down and I gave her the documents and then I said to her that, hi, I'm here for my son's passport application renewal. And she says, "Aš nekalbate angliškai ir lietuviškai." I said, then I in English answered, I said, I'm sorry, but I selected English language specifically. She said, nežinau. I said, but jūsų suprantate mane ar ne? I said, aš kalbate angliškai. Right? Ir portale. And then she says, yeah, but then I said, can you call your manager maybe? And the young guy comes and I said, sorry, but I booked. And he says to me, no, she says first, it's not my problem. I said, ir tavo problemas, ir ne mano problemas. I said, ir tavo problemas. Suprante? And then the guy says, yeah, but it is no guarantee. I said, are you serious? I said, so you're telling me I lose all my day to come here for an appointment and you can tell me, sorry, but we don't speak English, so try again. And again will be the same because the options doesn't change.
Yeah.
The process doesn't change. So I said, what the hell is this? So either make it very clear on your website that, sorry guys, Polish, Russian, Lithuanian, boom, finish, no English. Or if you're giving it as an option, you are legally obliged. If I was in UK, I will tell you what, this is a consumer act law. If you have given that information, you are supposed to provide me with that as a customer. You're obliged. If you're not, you're failing that commitment.
Yeah.
Simple as that, right? But here, what's the law here? That's the question. Because that is the law. They are the law. It's Migration, right? It's a government institution.
Yeah.
And anyway, and I then said, okay, so here's the photo, whatever, blah, blah, blah. And the guy says, your son needs to be here for the photo. I said, it's 2.5 years old. Yeah, but that's the law. I said, but it doesn't say on the website. When I filled in the application, it just says bring documents and one of the parents can come and blah, blah, blah. And that's it. Sorry, but okay. I said, no point, waste my time. Went again. A couple of weeks later. This time went to this guy because he said, you can come to my desk, right? Went with my wife and my son. Waited for roughly about 45 minutes. Finally got our chance. And now we're trying to get our kid's photo, He's 2.5 years old kid. He's not been in that environment, lights flashing, like gets panicked, sometimes gets a little scared because he's a kid, right? He's not doing this every day, right? And of course, with the long wait, he's already irritated anyways, because, kids at that age don't have a lot of patience. Unfortunately, they don't. And then the guy goes, maybe you need to give him some medicine. I'm like, sorry, I don't understand. What do you mean? To calm him down. I said, are you serious? And I kind of ignored it,
Yeah.
So my wife's trying. Then I, in the end, said, okay, let me try, So I think we got one photo, but he said, oh, it's not good enough. Okay. Ultimately, like, we realize that, the kid it's not going to happen. He's crying too much. He's panicking. It's not going to happen. And while I was doing this, the guy said something to my wife, and she was quite upset, and she like starts to walk, and we decide to walk out and whatever. And I said to her, what happened? I said, you look really upset. I mean, what did the guy say to you? She goes, the guy said, maybe you need to take your child to a psychologist, psychiatrist. I'm like, what the fuck?
Why would he even mention that, right?
Exactly. I'm like, what the fuck? I said, are you serious? She said, yes. I said, okay, you stay here. She was almost at the exit. I came back and I said to the guy, I said, who are you? Are you a doctor? Are you a child specialist? Who are you? You are just a customer service representative for a public organization. So how can you know what my child needs or doesn't need? Do you have kids? That's the first question I would say anyways. And I said, don't you come with your personal remarks to my child, because I will drag you to court and I will screw your life left, right, and center to make sure you pay for it. Because this is something that I'm not going to take very lightly, that you coming with, I can actually call it a discriminatory remark, to be honest, and you can be fired for that, to be honest. Because I could have made a huge noise about it in the media, that you are victimizing us, right? On what basis? So, those are the kind of things which, and then I said to my wife, I said, you know what? I don't even want a Lithuanian passport if that's how it is, to renew it. To hell with it. I don't care. Because I want him to be a proud Lithuanian. This was the reason I went in politics, actually, as an additional reason to my own thinking, that our son is born in Vilnius. It's his future we want to fight for. So either we let him deal with it when he grows up, or we start this journey now and make something better at least, so that he experiences a different, experience when he grows up, right? But when I hear such things, when I see such, experiences, when I see such attitude issues where you have no empathy, you have no consideration, you have no respect, I'm sorry, I am the customer. It doesn't matter how shitty day you're having, what your problems are. You cannot talk to me like this, especially not to a 2.5-year-old kid. In Lithuania, I think the people are very, I don't know if I should use the word patient. I think it's more to do with, do I actually care?
Careless.
About my own country. One is that you show something, one is that you actually do something.
Oh yeah, how many actually do?
So
right?
For me, that's where the interesting point is, that I see a lot of noise, but I don't see a lot of actions to make things better, And I always say, this is your country first. You should fight for it. You are the ones who are responsible. As I said, it's your mind, right? So you are the one who decides what I want to do tomorrow, right? So you are the ones who decide, do I want to have this future for myself and my kids? And for me, Lithuania is a home. It's not just another stopover destination, where I'm just hopping around for 6 months or something. And I'm like, okay, screw it. I mean, who cares? No, my wife is from Lithuania. My son is from Lithuania. I'm very happy to have some really good, wonderful people in my life, from Lithuania, as close friends I can call, as more than friends I can call, some of them family, actually. The other element, I think, what I've seen here, which is becoming very interesting, is the governance, the government part, right? Because for me, I've been watching a lot of different stories, I've been hearing a lot of scandals in the last so many years now here anyways. But in general, I think what I feel is that we don't have true leaders. We have a lot of politicians, but we don't have a leader. And that, I think, is a problem for Lithuania in general. There is no leader. And unless you have a true leader, the country's going nowhere. So yes, you'll do a little bit of this and a little bit of that, and you'll grow a little bit here, a little bit there. But where is the leadership? For example, if in the US, Biden is not really a leader for me anyway, but Obama was a leader, right? He was a leader. When he came in, he led, right? Sunak is not so much of a leader, in my opinion, personally. He's more like, he's trying to do a lot of firefighting, Rishi Sunak.
Yeah.
So he's doing a lot of firefighting to save to get the country out of the mess, let's say his predecessors in a very short time put it in. So he's not. But then again, if you look at India, for example, Zelensky is the leader, right? He's a great
An actor as well.
Yeah, yeah. So I think as an actor, he's an actor, but as a politician, he's a leader
The
now.
perception definitely as the leader, right? Of him.
I think he has set some good examples in the recent situations that Ukraine unfortunately is in. And then you look at Narendra Modi. I mean, the Indian Prime Minister. He's definitely by far a huge...
Very respected, right, in India?
Yes, he's in US now, and he's got a state reception, which is one of the biggest receptions US can offer to, let's say, only very few elected head of the states of different countries. So, I mean, he's become, I call him brand Modi now, he's not a prime minister anymore, he's a brand. I mean, he went to Australia, where the Australian Prime Minister, said that the crowd in the hall was larger during Modi's visit than it was during the Bruce Springsteen concert. So he has that charisma, whatever you want to call it, personality, and that I think is really, really big quality of leaders, because you can attract people. Here, people want to get away from politics. They don't want to hear nothing about the government, right? And of course, a lot of people that I speak to, they say, oh, it's still like, we're still a young country from Soviet. I said, you know what, stop this, because how long are you still going to be young? It's like a startup which is almost 20 years old, and you say, you know what, I'm a startup. No, you're not a startup. You are not a startup. You're now an established business.
When are you going to make money, huh?
Well,
we're still a startup.
Exactly. So I think it's that mindset where, yes, I understand we are relatively new to, the concept of independence than a lot of other historic countries, yes. But it's not an excuse for us to make those, progresses that we do need to make for growing the quality of life, first of all, for people, and then, of course, the economic growth for the country, of course, as well.
So how can we improve those lives, and how can we improve those economic conditions for Lithuanians?
I think this is going to take a long time. It's not going to happen anytime soon from my perspective anyways. The government's problem is the government's problem, but the people's problem is not the government's problem. And that's the problem, because I'm living how I'm living. So I'll give you a simple example, right? So I know that recently, if you look at the social media, especially Facebook and all of that, there's a lot of like push and promotion about, in Vilnius especially, how many people are now earning 3,000 euros, a huge percentage and blah, blah, blah. And I say, okay, great. So tell me, how many people are taking home 3,000 euros? I'll ask you the question in a different way. Because yes, when you have 3,000 euro, your take home is around maybe 1,500, 1,600, right? Average rent for a normal two bedroom, I'm calling in Vilnius. Okay, now is a little bit reception or whatever, but still an average is 950 in a normal decent place. I'm not talking very posh or whatever, average, right? And then you have your bills, and then you have your basic food, and then you have, if you have a kid, that's an addition. So what I'm trying to say is, if one person is working, that take home is gone before you even blink your eye. It's gone, not even for your luxury or anything that you might want to enjoy a little bit.
And everyone's in debt,
right?
On top of that.
Exactly, because you are now rented out to the government's policies, right? You will never be able to save enough money to build an apartment or buy an apartment or build a house or whatever, right? And unless two people work, you will really struggle to even raise a small family. So how does earning 3,000 euros on salary, doesn't matter, even 100% of Vilnius is earning that, I don't care, have an impact on their life? It still doesn't make things very easy. Unless, like I said, both partners are working equally the same, maybe then yes, it's better.
So what to do?
I think the tax policy definitely needs to change, and especially now recently we've had issues around the small businesses, self-employed businesses as well, which I think is mental because personally, I mean, again, we take a lot of examples from other European countries and from UK. We like to do a lot of copy and paste in Lithuania. Yeah. Unfortunately, sorry, but that's the truth, right?
Yeah.
But like they say, even to cheat, you need to be smart. it's a very different phrase in a different language, but in simple words, even to cheat, you have to be smart, right? So for me, a very simple concept is that look at an example of the UK tax structure, right? You get quite a big chunk of your money as tax-free, as your income. On top of that, you get a lot of other benefits to take it out as a dividend or whatever if you're doing. And it's all legal. I know I was having a conversation with an individual from the Bank of Lithuania actually on a flight while I was going to London. And he said, it's because we're trying to, so that a lot of people like to hide taxes or they don't want to pay. I said, no, that's not true. I would pay if it benefits me. Why wouldn't I? Why do I pay, I said, the right taxes in UK? Why do I do that? Right? Because the tax structure is considerate of my situation and circumstances and is built in the right way. So hence, yes, I will pay. But I said, if you want to just take away everything from people and give them nothing back, then of course people are going to say, you know what? Oh, I only earn 100 euros. That's it. I'll give you a very simple example. And it's my own example I can give. I don't have a problem. For example, like I'm a director in my own limited company in Lithuania as well, right? And I only spend 1 hour a month on that. It's purely just to have that company. And if we have any business in Lithuania, then we'll use that company because mostly all our business is based out of the UK. So I have my UK limited company through which we operate mostly anyway. And I asked my accountant the question because I saw that I had to pay Sodra or something for 150 euros. And I asked my accountant and I said, can you please explain me? I have a minimum salary of 100 euros or whatever, right? Because I'm only spending 1 hour in the work. So based on that, I'm charging myself that money. And how does it get calculated that I must pay 150 euros to Sodra? And the rule of the law is that your taxes are based on the minimum salary set by the government. Doesn't matter how much you work or you don't work. And I'm like, yeah, but that's not fair. So you're forcing people. And that's why I understand now that why people don't want to pay, for example, a lot of taxes clearly, or they don't want to be open about their incomes. Because, I mean, I'm a simple example. I'm not even drawing a huge income or whatever, but you still want to penalize me on charging me tax or contributing to tax based on my minimum salary. It doesn't happen in UK. It doesn't. So in UK, if I earn 100 euros, that's my salary. That's my salary. The UK law doesn't tell you, Sam, you have 100 euro salary, but you must give more. Get paid or pay taxes based on 40 hours a week salary. That's mental, So I think it's issues like these which I don't understand the head and the tail of, to get the logic behind it. And that I think is a big problem. I think it's a very big problem because usually if you look at most of the big developed countries, their economies are sustained by a lot of SMEs, a lot of, smaller businesses and industries as well. And especially in today's world, a lot of countries are promoting self-employment because of the balance of life and work, because of promoting the local economies and so on and so forth, right? If you look at London, look at Netherlands, look at US, whatever, right? So why then in Lithuania we want to kill almost that part of the economy? Why are we doing that?
By taxing.
Yeah, but why? That's the question. Why are we doing that? Because to me, I feel that, unfortunately, I feel that it's looking to me that there is a very clear bias to give more support and benefit to the bigger, the big boys, I call them, right? Who are huge multi-million, whatever, dollar, euro, pounds businesses here. Whereas the smaller, are just going to disappear. And I think that's what I call in simple words, you're setting up a monopolistic market.
You was in a team or in a party with Zuokas. Yeah. That's actually when we got in touch. I was actually out of country. We couldn't make it. But I think the timing was actually amazing just before the election. Yeah. And unfortunately, or fortunately, depends for who, you lost. And also by a small margin, right? Only 1 or 2%. to Valdas Benkuskas, your competitor. So how this whole process, went? How did you got involved? What was your role in the party?
So I had joined Vardan Lietuvos, which is Saulius Skvernelis' party, right? I had joined that party originally because, let's say, I had a close friend who was one of the founders of the party, right? But thereafter, I think we started to have some differences over some very, very simple and very basic things in terms of the mindset, the ideology, the approach, and so on, and the process, and so on and so forth. And we kind of fell out. And this was just before, I think, parties were starting to, let's say, put together their list of candidates for municipality. That's when I think me and Artūras got in touch. I know Artūras for about 6 years now, 5.5, 6 years. So I know him for quite some time. But of course, I initially met him at a social event. That's how the first introduction was. In principle, I think for me, he comes across as a strong visionary, as a leader, I would call, actually, because of his personality, because of what he has done in his life so far, so on, and because of the approach he takes to certain things. And that's where it kind of just clicked, and I thought, okay, you know what, let's try this, let's make it work. So I went on to being, let's say, a special advisor, for Artūras, and with my background being in public sector, being especially healthcare and transportation, which are, I think, two of the biggest problems for any country and any city anyways, and especially in Lithuania and in Vilnius. Still, it's a very big challenge, I think. So it made sense. And that's how kind of we came, together, and we came through to work together.
What do you think about Valdas, your competitor? Because they said it's just Šimašius kind of friend, or
for me, if you ask me, I mean, I'm a very people who know me, they know me. I speak my mouth out very straight up, right? So I don't eat my words, and I definitely, my father was a diplomat, but I'm definitely not a diplomatic person. I'm very straight up. For me, the biggest question, which I still don't have an answer to, is that he was a vice mayor for 8 years. I think that's a reasonably long time. And I know even during the campaign, he was kind of a lot of times saying, yeah, but I don't decide this, the mayor does this, the mayor does that. And I'm thinking, so it's like, you're in a marriage and you're saying, but I don't do anything. Just this person, just one partner is the one who's taking all the decisions, and I'm just the sleeping one, I'm just a sleeping partner. That's it. And for me, that doesn't kind of connect, because I'm a very logical person as well. So when you, excuse my French, but when you talk shit, I know it's bullshit, very simply. I personally feel his achievements have been next to nothing as a vice mayor for 8 years. How much is he going to do in the next 4 years? I think time will tell. Of course, they have a bigger budget, which is just over 1 billion for Vilnius city, which is quite huge, I think, for a city like Vilnius.
For how many years?
For 4 years. So they have a budget of about 1 billion now. So that's quite a big...
That's a lot of money.
Yes, exactly.
So they obviously have to do a lot of things with that money.
They have to, or they should do, I don't know. But I think, like I said, the question will be whether we will see after 4 years what has been done. I think in Lithuania, we're not very good with building brand politicians. And I think that's where we kind of lost a little bit. I think if we would have worked a little bit more on branding personally, I think we could have been in a different situation. When you are reaching out to the electorate, you should communicate an image. That's what is your selling point. It's your image. Everything else, you will have a mandate. I will have a mandate. You will have a manifesto. I will have a manifesto. More or less, plus minus the same. But the question is, when citizens see my face, and when citizens see your face and how they see it, that's where the game changes.
So time will tell with Valdas, obviously. So what do you think of Šimašius?
Remigijus is a smart guy. I mean, of course, he's a smart guy. He's moved from Liberale to, independent to Laisvės party. He's a smart guy, but I think I just try to understand sometimes when people say corruption, the word corruption, and they attach it to a politician, for example, right? I try to sometimes understand, how do you define corruption?
Yeah, so how do you define corruption?
Corruption for me is what I call it, because I've been in public sector myself. So
Corrupting.
So I'm almost, let's say, in the similar environment, right? But we would call more or less corruption being that I'm abusing, is literally the word, my power and my position for the benefit of someone, let's say, I know, or someone else as an external third party, right? For something where there is unfair process, there is a biased opinion, and there is, let's say, almost very low due diligence, right? I personally think that corruption didn't change since, let's say, the so-called terminology of image which was painted for Artūras. I think it didn't change because I think the same businesses still continued to get more business, actually, in the next government. Of course, everybody knows that Remigijus's present wife got a lot of projects, which, and if you look at my public page on Facebook, you would see that I had highlighted one very clear article, because I'm a public procurement expert, actually, by qualification as well. So
You see who overpays.
So I know very quick when something is not good and not correct. So I had questioned, for example, that there was one school in Pilaite. The process was like this, that they invited designs. This was the project originally. Design competition, if you want to call it.
Yeah.
Right? And you have 1, 2, 3, and all 1 to 3 get, like, let's say, some small cash award, right? And Gilma's company got, of course, the architects got the first position. So I think it was 30,000 or something like that. Second and third, right? But what was interesting is, from that design project, she straight away got awarded to design the actual school for a few million. That was very interesting, because for me, the question is, between this and between that, where is the process? And it was marked as, because there is a value of, if it's more than 50,000, technically you have to publish a tender, according to EU procurement regulations as well. PCR 2015 it's called. So you have to publish a tender. You can't go without that. And it was very interesting that it was just given away. So for me, the question is that not corruption? I mean, what do you call that? So I think it's just that people just get sidetracked and sidelined because, as I said, the branding was anti-Artūras, whether it was Surajev, whether it was Almost Happiness, whether it was any other media, some, let's say, control media, whatever it is. So everything was kind of like hit in every possible way, and try to damage all of this. I mean, for example, Surajev's video was nonsense. I'm sorry. I don't know if you had a chance
I didn't see his video.
You might have heard about it.
I know him. Yeah, I heard about him. Yeah.
Yeah, about
the video as well?
Artūras, it was like, for me, it was like, I don't know, disgusting. As a journalist, I mean, I think you should be ashamed of yourself, personally. That's just my opinion. Because that's not journalism.
He's always supporting the Valdančioji party, no?
He also, during Remigijus' time, his company also got some award for marketing campaign, especially before the elections. His company was awarded projects. And the interesting part is, again, there was no process. And interesting part is the work specification of the project was very clear that this is what you need to communicate to the residents. So for me, again, it's very interesting because I clearly see a connection between a so-called journalist, or for me, he's not even a journalist, if I'm honest. For me, he's just another whatever blogger, whatever you want to call it. Personally, and for me, I think he's lost in his own world, where even he doesn't know what he wants, maybe. And he's just coming out criticizing. Because for me, the interesting part is, I'll give you a simple example, right? We had this Czech scandal, we had the NATO scandal, and why is Surajev not speaking now? If he is so much for fairness, equality, diversity, no corruption, what happened? Why is there so much silence now? It's interesting.
So, talking about these NATO problems, as you say, or purchases, or expensive purchases, or overpaid purchases. So, what was the most shocking overpaid purchase you saw and you was like, oh my God?
It's interesting that we knew about this summit almost 2 years ago. So for me, it's very interesting why Mr. Landsbergis decided just less than 6 months to go for the summit to put out all these purchases almost direct awarded, to all these businesses.
Well.
No. And actually, some of these businesses are not even related to those fields.
Services.
So that's even more interesting, and that's where I think is the question where I ask myself, so it's my government, it's my prime minister, it's my judiciary, and it's my government money, public money. So I do whatever I want to. Who's going to ask me? Who's going to question me? Who's going to do anything? Because the question now is, again, as I said, where are those public bloggers, journalists, and noisemakers now? I mean, why are they not doing anything about this? Why are we focusing on the Czech scandal, which is worth, I don't know, nothing, if you look at this?
Yeah.
Why has this gone quiet and that's gone loud is the interesting part. Because there is a lot of noise about that, but there is no noise about this. Even though a very prominent business person, media person, private media person, together with a so-called public journalist has been photographed together because he got a project for 2 million at which the same address is registered the journalist company as well. So, do we really have free journalism here? Do we really have an honest journalism in this country? I don't agree. I don't think so. I think there is a very strong biased and very strongly controlled journalism in Lithuania. Sometimes people might think that, he's come from abroad and he's trying to be very cool here and all that. And I've heard that a lot. I mean, I've heard on some of my articles where our son got christened, I think, and it got posted on, LRT or whatever. And I read a lot of very interesting comments, and who the fuck is this guy and blah, blah, blah. I think the point is not this. I think for me, the point is, okay, I mean, sorry, but if the media wanted to cover it, they covered it. It's not that we planned to highlight and, show off with that. That's not the objective. I think for me, I can definitely say that I'm more concerned about a lot of issues locally than a lot of local people are.
Yes.
And I give a shit about it. That's the other question, the other point, that I actually give a shit about it. Sometimes people say, why, Sam? Come on. I mean, forget it, man. I mean, it's not your problem. I say, no, it is my problem. I live here. This is my home. So how is it not my problem? How can I just be blind and deaf and say it's not my problem? It is my problem, So those things worry me. For example, like just out of the context, maybe we might have finished, but in 7 years, yes, we are talking about all this modality of, let's start to give up public transport, give up cars and private transport and so on and blah, 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 and make more sustainable transport and so on. Yeah, well, great, absolutely great. I'm all in for it. Because in London, I don't use my car. I go only by public transport, always, right? So I don't have an issue here either. But in 7 years, what have you given me to make that choice, to make that decision? Trolleybus, autobus, trolleybus, autobus, trolleybus, autobus, and what more? And then you're telling me, okay, you want to reduce cars into the city and city center and so on. So since when did Bolt and Volt and Uber and so on not become cars anymore? So you've taken my car, but there is a car. So how is it any different? You've actually created more. For me, it's very interesting how much traffic is created by such companies. Because in New York, it was actually officially published that Ubers are creating more traffic than the private drivers using their own cars. It was officially confirmed with statistics, because by the time a driver drops you here and has to go around there and wait for some other customer and so on, you've already created a traffic. And that is worse than me using my own car. But the issue is that, we, I think, are still so stuck with our mindsets here that we are not willing to explore any other option. And that's the problem. I think we will have a very serious problem in the next few years, as how I see it, because the population of Vilnius, at least, Lithuania, I don't think is going to grow that much, but the population of Vilnius is definitely increasing. The amount of cars, because I've been here 7 years, so I can definitely say the change I have seen. The cars, it's becoming mental on the road in terms of traffic. I mean, sometimes I make a joke. Am I driving in central London or what? To come from Antakalnis just to Old Town sometimes takes me more than 30 minutes. And in peak hours, it can be maybe 45 minutes.
Yeah, and it's just like 2
and I'm like,
3
come
kilometers.
On. And when you look at these elements around trolleybus and so especially trolleybus, if you look at and I'll give you a very simple example of Antakalnis, Bažnyčios, this roundabout, right? From Žirmūnai, Antakalnis, Old Town, and towards Manufacturų or Markučiai. When a trolleybus starts to cross that roundabout, it almost leads to a traffic jam in all directions, because it has to go at a certain speed, at a certain angle, in a certain circumference. So how is it helping? And then the second thing is, why should I go on a bus if that bus will probably be either next to me or behind me by the time we reach the next traffic light? But I'm sitting in my air-conditioned car. So I'm happy with that. Why would I go in the bus then? Where, it's not like, like in London, like you have those bus lanes and you go like, oh, the car is there and the bus is like already reached your destination. And then we talk about these bicycle lanes, which was so heavily pushed by Remigijus anyways, which is great. Again, I accept that it's a good initiative, but then again, it's a copied initiative. But let's not forget, we are not Belgium, we are not Brussels, we are not Netherlands, we are not Amsterdam, we are not London, we are Vilnius. Our demography is different, our people's habits are different, our climate is different, our roads are different, our infrastructure is different. So it's not like a one-size-fits-all policy or copy and paste. How would you explain to me in winter when it snows that I use bicycle lanes? How would you explain to me that an elderly person uses bicycles, right? How would you even explain to me that how does an elderly person with 2 shopping bags or a mother with a young kid and 2 shopping bags uses anything apart from a bus or a car? And this is where I come back to again, is the competence of people in that administration, in that team, in that environment to take those decisions.
Yeah.
And that's where the challenge is. I personally think till we don't take a decision to do something about our transport system, we have a very serious problem happening if this population continues to grow and the cars continue to increase. We have a very, very, very serious issue here, I think, because we don't have an infrastructure at the moment, to be honest. I mean, the roads are still quite shitty. Okay, we are repairing all these roads, but hang on a second. So what were we doing for 8 years? So what did Remigijus do when he was the mayor? If we are again repairing the roads, first we make the roads narrow while you are a vice mayor. So you let him make the roads narrow, but then when you become the mayor, you say, oh, no, it's not good. So now you're making the roads wide, but it's not your money. It's public money. So you're blowing away public money. And the public is cool with it.
What can they do?
Because what is the public doing? Because tell me something. So in the UK, for example, when you pay your taxes, right? National insurance and all of that, you know this probably, that you have an account where you can actually send a check roughly what percentage of that money is going where, whether it's police, whether it's local infrastructure, whether it's ambulance. It tells you that. I don't know if you've seen it or not.
No, I never checked, but
yeah, it does.
Yeah.
So if you have a UK national insurance,
yeah,
and if you go on gov.uk site and you can actually check where your money is spent. Why don't we do that in Lithuania? We talk about open data here, right? We are making very big claims that Lithuania is open data. How is it open? Just to give me some data sets, that's open. What about my data? What about the money I spend in the government here? Where is that money going? Who's asking those questions? Nobody. And that's what I'm saying. If you don't care, why would they care? So hopefully I think, people will little bit try to understand that it is your money. It's very, because this is a common myth actually in UK as well. In the NHS, many people think it's government money. Because when you use the word public funds, it's like, oh, government is putting this money. No, it's not. You pay taxes, you pay national insurance, that goes into the system. Plus, of course, there is some funding, yes, but it is your money. So you're not getting anything for free, which you think you do. You don't. You pay for it just in a different... It's like a draudimas. You're paying every month. And then if you need it, you use this draudimas when you go for some treatment or diagnosis or whatever, right? Same is the case. And it is running on draudimas, which you're paying every month. And when you need it, they don't charge you. They say it's free. But it is the same thing.
yes,
So there's nothing for free. There's no free air here.
yeah,
Nothing's for free. So that's what people, I think, fail to understand, that this money which the government is spending is not their money. It's your money. You paid for it. You pay for it every goddamn single day.
You come from India, and obviously India has many poor people, and obviously India at the same time has a really deep understanding of spiritual side,
Yes.
meditation and all that. And all of this stuff does help
Yes.
alleviate pain with you.
Yeah.
So how does your bringing, childhood and all of that impacts your decision making or your stress levels now?
So I grew up in a very interesting family. So my father being a public official, my mother being
Fashion, no?
a businesswoman. Yeah, started with fashion designing. Well, started from being a housewife actually, while raising two young children. Me and my elder brother. To then, becoming an enterprising woman who had her dreams, who had her ambitions and her goals as well equally, to support and grow the family in addition to my father. So I think from that, since a very young age, I learned a couple of things which I still, I think, have hugely built into my let's say, system of thoughts. One is obviously never forget where you come from. Doesn't matter how high you go in your life. Doesn't matter. Secondly is you should still be nice and helpful to people in general if you can. Because as we believe in karma, so karma is you do your deed and that's it, and the rest will follow. I think the third element is I do live by very strong values of honesty and integrity, and that comes very strongly from my father especially, because being a public official, it's so easy to become corrupt. Yeah, because I think for me, to respect somebody, to appreciate somebody, to understand somebody, I don't need to understand your culture, your color, your religion, and so on. I need to understand you as a human being. And that's how I look at people. I don't look at people as... Because sometimes somebody asks me a question, where are you from? I said, where you are from? I'm from the same place.
Yeah.
That's it. Just we are located in different parts of that place. That's it.
Yes.
On the map. That's it. But I'm exactly from the same place.
Yes.
So that's my answer, because I don't like the stereotypical labels. And I don't like anybody should give anybody any labels. My intention always was, if I go into politics, I want to bring a change. I want to create a difference. I want to add value from my experience, from my knowledge, from my expertise, from my thoughts. That's what I want to do. Because for me, that is important. For me, the value I see of feeling appreciated for that is people's love and respect for me. That is my value. That when I walk down the street, people say, you know what? This is the guy who's bloody done this, a great job. I love him. That's what you feel, you've done something. Because as I said, everything else, okay, I can drive a nice Porsche and live in bloody Wallacampi and whatever else, it doesn't matter. Those things don't matter because that's all empty shells, But do you love me as a person on the street? No, you don't then. You hate me because I've cheated you. I've fooled you. I lied to you. And that's why you will never trust me. So it's a very fine line between, how you think about these things. And for us, it's very important. For me and my wife both. It's very, very, very important because we both are quite similar. And this is one thing we want to raise our son with anyways. That, I always say this to my wife, that my self-respect is my number one priority. And the minute you touch my self-respect, you're out. Anybody who's in that sort of, way coming across to destroy my self-respect, I don't care who, you're out. Simple as that. Because I hold my morals really high. And in Lithuania, actually, I can challenge. Nobody will find any dirt on me. I can challenge this. Anybody. Your best journalist to best whatever. Nobody. Because I'm very clean, I'm a very transparent person. And that's why I'm quite, strong in that sense. So
thank you very much, Sam, for coming in.
Thank you so much. Thanks a lot. It's a pleasure.
Thanks.